In the midst of sorrow, you can see up and looking down. Right away to sorrow will bring. Oh, you cannot find a reason. Telling you this can't settle me down. No matter how hard reality seems, just hold on to the dream. Yeah.
Live from Washington, D.C., you're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, your host and chief White House correspondent. I'm in touch until you be in touch. Be sure to follow me on all the social media platforms at Dr. Nii-Quartelai. That's DrNiiQuartelai. Pro tip, just type in Dr. Nee, DrNii, and boom, bam, boom, there I am. Also, be sure to download the KBLA app to listen to us live or on demand, or simply tell Alexa to play KBLA Talk 1580, and there we are for your listening pleasure. Last but not least, be sure to subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast powered by KBLA Talk 1580, the only Black-owned and operated talk station west of the Mississippi. And we'll get you what you need. We'll get you right. From the White House to your house, we're providing you with expert analysis and interviews with leaders on the front lines. Speaking of leaders on the front line, and we'll be talking about Vice President Harris a little bit later, but in the meantime, go ahead and go on to Amazon or Barnes and Nobles or anywhere books are sold online and pick up your copy of what I'm calling some of my best work yet, Kamala, the Motherland, and Me. It's an invitation to challenge your assumptions about Madam Vice President. Africa and ourselves had the good fortune of traveling to Africa with Vice President Harris last spring and got a lot to say about it. And so check out this book. And in a few weeks, I'll be sharing with you some dates, places I'll be in different parts of the country where we can talk in person about all the things on the page here. But make sure to pick up your copy of Kamala, the Motherland, and Me. Now it's time for your national news roundup. It's time for the good, bad, and ugly headlines of the day. And kicking us off, Elon Musk. NBC News is reporting that Elon says that voting by mail is insane. But guess what? He's done it himself. That's at least what records show. Elon Musk has attacked voting by mail as an insane idea that encourages election fraud. But he voted by mail twice when he lived in California. That's according to records of his voting history obtained by NBC News. Musk voted by mail in November 2016. Y'all remember that. You know, the year Donald Trump defeated Hillary Clinton. He also voted in the November 28 midterm elections, according to records, and Musk's primary residence was in Los Angeles at the time. The state records show that Musk had a sparse history of voting in California. During the 18 years he was eligible to vote there, he cast his ballot in only those two elections. He became eligible to vote when he became a U.S. citizen in 2002 and cast his first ballot 14 years ago at the age of 45. He was actively registered to vote by August 2006. And among the elections that Musk skipped were presidential races in which Barack Obama, John McCain, and Mitt Romney were on the ballot, all primary elections. and all local elections. California, as folks at our home station in Los Angeles know very well, has an open primary system in which all registered voters are allowed to participate. So, is this another case of do as I say, not as I do? This is another case of someone who purports to be deeply concerned about the issues in the public square, but not as interested in voting on those issues that impact the public square and those leaders that influence solutions to those issues in the public square. Oh, Elon Musk. Moving on. Speaking of voting, Texas voter purge may be sending a chilling message to lawmakers and advocates. At least they are certainly warning about this. NBC also reporting that Texas, who may have been wrongly removed, the Texans rather, who may have been wrongly removed from the state's voter registration list or whose voter registration has been suspended, have little time to reverse course. That's what Democratic state lawmakers and civil rights advocates warned just yesterday, a few days after Republican leadership announced the purge of, get this, more than 1.1 million names from their voter rolls. States are required by law to regularly update their voter registration lists to remove people who have died or moved or who were found ineligible to vote for other reasons. But Republican Governor Greg Abbott touted the routine maintenance of the voter rolls in a series of election integrity bills that he signed into law in 2021. Numbers released by Abbott's office show that more than 134,000 voters, that's a lot of people, 134,000 voters purged from those state voter rolls since September 2021. That was confirmed. They confirmed that they had moved elsewhere, and 457,000 others had died. But most of the voters who were removed, more than 463,000, had been placed on a suspended list. This is where things get a little creepy. Names on the suspended list are deleted if the state receives information that voters have permanently moved out of their registered addresses or don't vote in 2 consecutive election cycles. Now, if you're thinking like my producer, Robert, that has a huge impact on local elections, which, as we all know, is a big part of the lifeblood of the democratic experiment. Remember, all politics are local. So while the latest numbers of the purged voters appear large, they're in line with routine maintenance of voter rolls over the past several years. But Democratic state representatives and Houston City Council members remain alarmed at the more than 2.1 million Texas voters who remain on the suspended list, mainly because county officials don't have their current addresses on record. With nearly 13% of all 17.9 million voters registered in the state on the suspended list, this represents more barriers for their votes to count. This is what State Representative Cristina Morales said in Spanish at a news conference. And so, this is a part of the reason why passing the John Lewis Voting Rights Act is critically important. There was a time where states had to have pre-clearance in order to make changes to election rules in their states because of the legacy of voter suppression and voter intimidation in this country. Because of the Supreme Court, they have chipped away at that component of the Voting Rights Act. And the John R. Lewis Voting Rights Act would attempt to mitigate that. But this is an example of how and why the John Lewis Voting Rights Act would be critically important, would make a major difference in elections in places like Texas. And this isn't just about the presidential, as my producer Robert has mentioned. It's about local elections. The people who sit on your city council, on your school board, people who occupy the district attorney's office, they all matter. It makes a material difference in terms of our everyday lives. And so you better believe we're going to continue to follow this. We're also going to continue to follow this story about a Black student that was about Black students being kicked out of high school. That's right. The Associated Press is reporting that Black students are still kicked out of school at higher rates despite reforms. Those in Georgia, for example, where I was just at yesterday and the day before with Vice President Harris, Black students there make up slightly more than 1/3 of the population, but they account for the majority of students who receive punishments that remove them from the classroom, including suspensions, expulsions, and being transferred to an alternative school. Those disparities in Georgia and across the country become the target of a newly energized reform movement a decade ago, spurred by the same racial reckoning that gave rise to the Black Lives Matter movement. Now, for many advocates and students and educators, pursuing racial justice meant addressing disparate outcomes for Black youth that begin in the classroom, often through harsh discipline and underinvestment in low-income schools. And so we know this is an issue in Georgia. We know this is also an issue in Missouri, where, for example, an Associated Press analysis found that Black students served 46% of all days in suspension in the 2013 to 2014 school year. That's the year Michael Brown was shot and killed by police in the state just days after he completed high school. And then in California, the suspension rate for Black students fell from 13% in 2013 to 9% a decade later, but still 3 times higher than white suspension rates. So this is a persistent challenge. You better believe we're going to have somebody on sooner than later to help us unpack this and make sense out of it. But it is Pop Culture Happy Hour here on More Perfect Union. And when we come forward, we're welcoming back my friend, our friend, Al Reynolds, pop culture and entertainment correspondent. We're going to be digging even deeper into the headlines, particularly the major takeaways from Kamala Harris's CNN interview yesterday. And also, we're going to be talking about Trump, who's in damage control mode after a backlash from the right over his abortion ban comments just yesterday. We are just getting started. You are listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward.
A safe place to go loud. A great place for progressive politics. KBLA Talk 1580. Tabitha Smiley's new book, The Covenant with Black America, 20 years later, is now on sale everywhere. This classic text shot to #1 on the New York Times bestsellers list almost 2 decades ago. If you have the original book, you will surely want to get this 20th anniversary edition with powerful new contributions from today's leading voices. This 20th anniversary edition presents a compelling blend of historical insights and contemporary urgency in this critical and unprecedented election year. Get your copy of The Covenant with Black America 20 years later today.
After you use Bounce Dryer sheets and realize how fresh, soft, less wrinkled, and less staticky your laundry can be, you'll want a sheet on your every time. Like those socks that smell like they've been through a marathon. Or that blanket that's got wrinkles on its wrinkles. Maybe even your chatty coworker who keeps distracting you. Okay, Bounce Dryer sheets can't do it all. But for fresher, softer, better laundry,
KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA reminds you that when we fight, we win, and we don't black down. LA Community Action Network, or LA CAN, was formed in 1999 when 25 residents of downtown LA came together and acknowledged the problems that existed in their community and made a commitment to do something about those problems, to stand together, organize, and become a force in the community that demands change. Civil rights and preventing the criminalization of poverty are their core projects. In addition, they take on women's rights, the human right to housing, and healthy food access. LA CAN also has projects focused on economic development, civic participation, voter engagement, and community media. While downtown LA remains their home base, with a particular emphasis on the Skid Row community, In 2007, they expanded their housing and healthy food access work into South Central Los Angeles. LA Can believes that power for low-income people and people of color is achieved through a large, active, and well-informed member base that utilizes a multitude of methods to advance their messages and goals. If you'd like to join the Los Angeles Community Action Network and organize people to fight back against oppression, please visit cangress.org. That's cangress.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
What's wrong?
My travel rewards card didn't earn enough miles for my vacation.
Are you crying? Are you crying because of that other credit card?
Uh-huh.
Well, switch to the Capital One Venture card. Venture lets you redeem miles on any travel purchase.
Really?
Yep, and you earn unlimited double miles on every purchase every single day. The Capital One Venture card. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Broadcasting live from Leimert Park, USA. Welcome back to your home for unapologetically progressive radio. KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey, and delighted to welcome back to the show my friend, your friend, our brother, Judge Al Reynolds is with us.
You make me laugh so hard. Dr. Nii-Quartelai, how are you, Doctor? I'm going to call you Dr. N. Dr. Q.
I'm good. How are you, Judge
I
A?
am good. I am in the nation's capital. You know, I'm back at Bowie State University again this semester. I'm so glad to be working with Dr. Bro. She's an amazing president over there doing big things, not only in entrepreneurship school, but you also saw that she opened a Martin Luther King Center on the campus of Bowie State University. So this was the first week of classes, and today I taught my last section for the first week of class. So good to be in the nation's capital. How are you?
That's awesome. I'm doing well. Clearly, you know, when Whitney Houston said, "Teach them well and let them lead the way," we both believe her.
That's correct. That's correct.
You know, I do. I just finalized my syllabus for this semester at Pepperdine, and so isn't it cool that we get to engage with viewers and listeners in the media world and the public square, I guess, in this way, and we also get to engage with some of the brightest minds among us in the classroom. It's pretty cool. We got a cool deal.
Absolutely. You know, the biggest thing is that as we evolve, we need to know what these young people are thinking, especially when it comes to politics and when it comes to the environment that we're in. They aren't like the old politicians. They're not like the old constituents, right? They do things differently. They have a different vision and a different focus. And I always like having my finger on the pulse when it comes to the younger generation and what their needs are, how they want to be taught, what they feel like they need to learn, and how they can apply it to make it a better union, just like here, a more perfect union. And that's what they're focused on. They are really keen and excited about this election now, which I am finding outrageously interesting. Being on an HBCU, these students are now, believe it, Dr. Q, are talking about Kamala. They are talking about the election. They are being much more transparent about Trump as well. And this is very, very interesting. I've never seen anything like it in the 30 years. Well, actually, I've only been in the classroom for 20 years, in the 20 years that I've been in the classroom.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of enthusiasm. I'm just returning from travel. I was in Georgia with Vice President Harris overnight, covering her trip to Savannah.
Oh, wow.
Her first visit following the DNC convention with her VP nominee, Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota. And so I had a chance to follow them on the campaign trail. And there was a lot of enthusiasm on the trail, particularly among Black folks, women of all backgrounds, a lot of young people. There were probably almost 8,000 people in one of the biggest venues in Savannah that came out yesterday afternoon to hear Vice President Harris, speak. And afterwards, I had a chance to engage with some of those real people on the ground to kind of get a
Mhm.
sense of what they're thinking and how they're processing this. And
Mhm.
people are fired up. I had locals in
Fired up.
Savannah tell me that they believe not only will Savannah go for Harris and Walz in November, but they believe that Georgia will go for Harris and Walz in November, that the enthusiasm is that high. There was a
Mhm.
father that was almost he was a little misty-eyed telling me that his daughter was sexually assaulted last year.
Oh,
And so hearing Vice President Harris talk about the government not having a right, or how the government shouldn't have a right to tell women what to do with their bodies,
right.
it really resonated with him. And it's a part of what is fueling his enthusiasm to support her and Governor Walz's bid for the White House. It was also very intergenerational. I saw
Yes.
older Black women and younger Black
Yes.
women.
Yes.
And so this is feeling, more like a phenomenon. This
It
is
really does.
like a movement. Like people are really in it. Both their heart and their head are really in
Right.
it. And I don't think I've ever seen anything like this. I mean, this is very different from Obama, and part of it is because of I think who her opponent is and what he represents.
Right. Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's a resurgence in interest in the political process. And it's a resurgence. What I find so interesting, it's a resurgence on the back of a Black female, something that I can't say I would have ever thought I would have seen, especially the way Hillary Clinton was treated when she was running for president. It just really shocked me to see how many women turned their backs on her. But you're experiencing, you're hearing the exact opposite here with presidential candidate Kamala Harris.
Yeah, well, so a lot of folks are talking about her past couple days on the campaign trail in Savannah. Visiting with local folks on the ground, small business owners. I think we overheard her in a conversation with a small business owner talk about rolling out a special tax credit for
Right.
small businesses, for startups.
Right.
And so lots of people talking about Kamala Harris, but the internet is especially talking about their takeaways from the Harris CNN interview with Dana Bash. Did you watch?
Right. I didn't watch it live, but I have watched it since. And listen, I'm telling you, I'm just, my heart is just filled watching this woman rotating into this space. And not only is she commanding it in in all the right ways, in my opinion, but I feel like she's putting confidence back into us all about all of the topics that she's talking about. And I'm also loving how she's commanding how these interviewers, these journalists are trying to trick her or trap her, and she's not falling for it. She's not falling for it, and she's staying focused. She's giving us much more confidence in the Democratic Party. She's also tackling those issues that people have been highlighting around her race, highlighting around fracking, highlighting around her policies. She's attacking it head on, and she's not wavering. And I'm loving every part of that.
Yeah, not wavering at all. I mean, lots of folks reporting that Harris, really passed the test of doing an unscripted interview. I think that's a sort of weird frame because keep in mind, she's the sitting vice president of the United States. She served as a U.S. Senator from California, Attorney General of California, District Attorney of San Francisco. And so the idea that she might, fumble an interview with, Dana Bash, no disrespect to Dana Bash, this isn't inside the actor's studio. This isn't, anything like that. And so, as a member of the press, it's a little strange to me in terms of the framing that people just sort of run away with.
But this is the tea, Dr. Q. This is the tea. We like being underestimated. We love the fact that they're underestimating her. You talk junk about her during her presidency as VP, and what you're seeing now is everything that you talked bad about is actually not true, right? You talked about her being too jovial. You talked about her not commanding rooms. You talked about her not having the ability to be a leader. And what she has shown us since Biden has stepped down is totally opposite. And that's the T. And I hate to bring that word up here, but in fact, that is the T. Kamala has risen to the occasion, and she is doing exactly what the American people not only needed, but are expecting, and she's not letting us down in any way. And I think you're right. This woman is, it's like, how could she not be prepared for an interview? But the good thing is we pretty much have not seen her a lot during the Biden administration as it relates to the press in a positive light. They always highlighted her shortcomings. Now we're able to see, like I said before, everything that you thought you knew bad about Kamala, she's now saying and proving to everybody that it's not true. That not only was she a successful VP and did some pretty incredible things, but she's always been successful in her career trajectory, whether it was as an attorney general, whether it was, whatever position she held, she's always shined, and no one really gave her flowers when she did. And now it's the time for it all to come out. And now that it's coming out, we're seeing that this is not only an effective person as VP, but she is going to be clearly an effective president.
Well, one thing that hasn't been so effective is Trump in his attempt to do some damage control after the backlash he's receiving from the right over his abortion ban comments. We're going to get Judge Al Reynolds' take on that and more. We're digging deeper into the headlines. It's Pop Culture Happy Hour, the political edition, right here on A More Perfect Union. More when we come forward.
The station you turn to when you've had it up to here with cultural incompetence. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Vice President Kamala Harris, who is Black, finished her bus tour by calling for voters in Georgia to head to the polls. Harris spoke in Savannah on Thursday. Her and Tim Walz also campaigned on helping out families in need. ABC News is reportedly declining a request from Vice President Harris, who is Black, to have unmuted microphones at next month's debate against former President Trump. That's according to the New York Post. There will be no audience, no notes, and mics will be turned off when the opposing candidate is speaking. A new survey shows the use of cannabis among young adults is historically high. The University of Michigan has released its annual study called Monitoring the Future, which tracks substance use trends among adults in the U.S. The latest survey from 2023 shows that about 42% of young adults aged 19 to 30 reported using cannabis. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Uh-oh. She's looking at the cigarettes, but she just grabs the gum off the counter. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer. Go to takeahealthystand.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The Dodgers are the first major league team to reach 80 wins. They beat Baltimore last night to build some momentum for their crucial 4-game series at Arizona. Game 1 is tonight in Phoenix. The Dodgers lead Arizona by 4 games in the NL West. The Angels snapped their 7-game losing streak with a shutout win at Detroit. It was the Angels' 6th shutout of the season and their first since July 6th in Chicago against the Cubs. The Angels are back home tonight to start a 3-game series against Seattle. 4 HBCU football teams played Division I opponents last night, and the results were not pretty. Howard, Jackson State, Arkansas Pine Bluff, and North Carolina A&T lost by an average margin of 38.7 points. Arkansas Pine Bluff lost by 70 to Arkansas. Jackson State was the only team of the 4 to give their opponent a game. They lost to Louisiana Monroe by 16. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, aka the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
Have you heard of the 50-30-20 rule? This can help you spend and save your money wisely. So how does it work? Distribute your dollars into 3 buckets, 50% towards needs, 30% towards your wants, and 20% goes to savings. Use this tool to help your journey to financial success. Sponsored by JP Morgan Chase & Company.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, where hate meets a scholarly match.
You're listening to a more of a union on KBLA Talk 1580 of Dr. Nii-Quartelai Quartey. Happy Friday, everybody. We're joined today with Judge Al Reynolds. He is one of our favorite pop culture and entertainment correspondents. You might recognize him from his days over at Fox Soul as host of TGIF. In addition to keeping us informed in the media, he's also a professor over at Bowie State University. And so if you're one of the lucky students there, I think the ad drop period hasn't ended yet. So somebody could still add your class, couldn't they?
Oh, they sure can. And anybody who's interested, come on in. I think I have about 15 or 16 students now. I think I'm allowed to have 18. But you can also just, sit in, which is audit the class, and I can have an additional 2 or 3. So if anybody's interested, be sure to go on Bowie State University.edu and look up my class. It's a 470. Actually, you know what? You would have to, if you're not a senior, you would have to audit it. So you can still take it, but you would have to audit it.
All right, there we are. Boom, there we are. For those that are streaming, you can see exactly where to go.
That's absolutely correct.
Look, Whitney Houston said, "Teach them well, let them lead the way." We believe her. But let me tell you something. Folks aren't buying Trump, the GOP nominee who has landed in hot water on abortion again after criticizing Florida's 6-week ban and declining to take a stance on the state ballot measure. Former President Trump is in damage control indeed on abortion after telling NBC News that Florida's 6-week ban is too short and declining to take a clear stance on the state ballot measure that would expand access to the procedure. You all might also remember that he said that he would support the government funding IVF. That's what he said just yesterday, right? And so he's kind of all over the place. Judge Al, what do you make of the latest antics by the former president?
Let me tell you something. I have to take off my glasses for this one. Marjorie Dannon Felser. I wanted to make sure I said that right. Margie Dannon, it's Dannon, right? Dannon Felser, who's the president of the anti-abortion group, the Susie B. Anthony Pro-Life America, was a big advocate of his because of his stance on abortion, right? And so I think it was a bait and switch, if you want my honest opinion. And I also think that he's also backing out of this. Now, Nii-Quartelai, I'm going to go out on a limb and say this. It may not be fully thought out, but it's how I feel. I think he has seen how women have come to support Kamala and how much attention that he usually got from majority white women, and now they're kind of turning their back on him as it relates to him telling women what to do with their bodies. Now, this is just my personal assessment. Maybe you can lean in and teach me a little bit more about it, a little deeper when it relates to the politics around this. And I think originally when he partnered with Marjorie, that's where he got a lot of his anti-abortion support. But women are now saying, because you've made it so strict, that you are now violating our rights as women to tell us what we need to do with our bodies. And he's seen a lot of people escape the party because of that. And it just didn't settle and has not settled well. And it's also caused a great deal of messaging confusion from the party, which, as you see, now he's saying that the 6 weeks ban is not long enough. Now he's saying that I want the IVF procedure to be covered fully. And we know that over there at the anti-abortion, Susan B. Anthony, that they don't like that. That's not the stance that they took, and that's not the president's stance that they support. So I really think he's trying to, sidestep, trying to neutralize the abandonment that a lot of women who were so in support of him and his party are now exercising their right, because they're saying no longer will men be able to tell us, and definitely not in an executive order, what to do with our bodies. Now, am I wrong in this assessment?
I mean, I think it's very polite. I think your assessment is very polite. I think very simply, the former president is saying what he believes he needs to say in order to get elected. He and the Republicans have staked out not just an unpopular position among men and women across this country, because both men and women are impacted when IVF treatments, are limited or not covered by insurance. Men and women are impacted, when there are abortion restrictions that are put in place, right? And the lives of people's partners are impacted. And so I think it's a gross miscalculation by Republicans. And I think just add it to the list of gross miscalculation after gross miscalculation. That's the Project 2025 effect, right? And so if he didn't mean it, it probably wouldn't be on the page in Project 2025, right? And we know that it is, that they support, restricting women's reproductive rights, and it's a very powerful attack line that the vice president has. We're not going back. When she said it just yesterday in Savannah, Georgia, I was there and I heard the crowd go wild. Right? Folks agree they're not going back. They agree that, you may have whatever position you have on abortion, right? But I think where the Unity Coalition comes together is they believe that it shouldn't be the government telling women what to do with their body, right? And I think the Republicans have underestimated that. The former president's underestimated that, and will pay a heavy cost in November, particularly among white college-educated women, white working class women, women in the suburbs, right? These were women that helped to put former President Trump over the finish line.
That's right.
When he ran in 2016. These are women that he lost to Joe Biden in 2020, and these are women that right now appear to be standing with Vice President Harris.
And you know what? Damage control is what he's doing across the board, not just in this issue, but damage control across the board. He has moved too fast, and a lot of Americans have awakened in this shift, because he thought what he was going to do was he was going to play to the common sense of his base. The common sense of the base was getting him all the PR, but that PR now is becoming something that's very detrimental to his reelection. And most people are saying this is why he doesn't look happy these days. He doesn't look happy these days because he's seeing those sentiment polls where he is declining at a very fast pace, and he doesn't know how to stop the bleeding. Not to mention Vance.
Right.
That
is an awful VP pick. He just kind of seems to just go out there and say weird things. It's very clear that Vance is not ready for prime time. This is someone who hasn't even served a full term as a United States senator, and it shows. This is somebody who just seems so far out of the mainstream, and just between the two of them, they seem so willing to say whatever they need to say to get attention, whatever they need to say in order to pick up votes. And I think there are a lot of American people that can see right through that. There's a reason why over 200 Republicans who supported George W. Bush, supported Romney,
wasn't that
supported
amazing?
McCain, recently came out in support of VP Harris. I mean, when's the last time you saw this kind of unity across the political spectrum? It is not just unity for Kamala Harris. It is a repudiation of Project 2025. It's a repudiation and a referendum on the former president.
It's so interesting because when did George Bush and that entire family become bipartisan? When did they ever practice bipartisanship? I have seen some great stuff. Not to talk about McCain.
When Trump pulled up.
But you know what? It's so good to watch. I think in the 9th hour, America is waking up. And I'm loving that it was, like I keep saying this over and over, and this will be my message in here today, on the back of a Black woman in the Black community. We are waking up to this foolishness politics, to this renegade politics that we've been witnessing, not only during his administration, but all after his administration, throughout the Biden administration. And it was scary to watch that it was working, right? Right, Doc? It was working.
Right.
People were still supporting him. People were still behind him. He was still high in the polls. And I think as we have all examined and kind of been trying to process why did Biden make this move, it's quite clear, without it being questioned anymore, why he needed to step aside. He has reinvigorated the American population, the voting population, and especially towards the Democrats, to stop this foolishness that we've started to see unveil, and not only unveil, but progress in the Republican Party, and with Trump, and now with J.D. Vance, who's just an absolute, just a buffoon. He has put Trump's train from local to express going straight to HELL.
Oh Lord, not the HE hockey sticks. Look,
politically.
Yeah, and it's also important to note in last night's CNN interview with VP Harris and Dana Bash and Governor Walz, Dana asked the vice president about how she found out. And she mentioned that President Biden called her on a Sunday morning while she was cooking breakfast for her family who was visiting, and he had shared with her what he was going to do, and she said that her first response was, "Are you sure?" Right? She wasn't even really thinking about, "Oh my gosh, what this means for me." And then of course she disclosed the fact that she didn't ask him for his support. He immediately offered his support. I thought that was an incredible moment. It was an incredible moment, right? With all the hand wringing and all the backroom conversations about, a brokered convention and, enthusiasm around Newsom and Whitmer and all these names of these, superstars or emerging stars in the Democratic Party, that for Biden, based on what Harris shared yesterday, none of that created any question for him. It seemed as if he had the clarity and the conviction from Jump Street, didn't need to be persuaded, didn't even need to be asked. I think that says a lot about the character of Biden, the loyalty of Biden, not just to Harris, but to the folks that brought him to the dance. When we come forward, more with Judge Al Reynolds. Jack Daniels is in the headlines for retreating from diversity, equity, and inclusion in light of this inflection point we find ourselves in world history. Judge Al is going to give us the skinny on what that means and what Jack Daniels might reconsider when we come forward. You're listening to A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580.
The quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
Substance use disorder and addiction is so isolating. And so as a Black woman in recovery, hope must be loud. It grows louder when you ask for help and you're vulnerable. It is the thread that lets you know that no matter what happens, you will be okay.
When we learn the power of hope, recovery is possible. Find out how at startwithhope.com. Brought to you by the National Council for Mental Wellbeing, Shatterproof, and the Ad Council.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada, member FDIC.
Hey, checking in?
This is not just your flu shot appointment at Walgreens.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is getting your entire family vaccinated in one trip.
Hey, Mom?
And a snack on the way out. Get flu shots for everyone in your family, together. Schedule appointments online today. This is wellness made easy. Walgreens.
Vaccine subject to availability and for ages 3+. State health-related restrictions may apply.
Point.
Hey, you okay? You don't normally miss those shots.
Oh, I just haven't been as regular lately, and it's making me feel sluggish.
You should try Metamucil. It's been a game changer for me. Metamucil's plant-based psyllium fiber helps trap and remove the waste that weighs you down.
Ace,
you're moving better than you were last week.
Definitely.
Metamucil keeps you moving. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Learn more at metamucil.com.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Did you know your life insurance is an asset you can sell? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. For almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. And at abacuspays.com, we've created a free policy value calculator so you can find out the worth of your policy in just seconds. There are no fees and no obligations. Get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Learn more at abacuspays.com.
Do you know what brand sells the most work shoes in America? Skechers. Why? Skechers has the best looking safety toe and slip resistant shoes around. They've got superior quality and simply incredible prices, but many people get them just for the style. So you can enjoy tough, steel-toed protection and slip-resistant soles anywhere, even if you don't need them for work. And since they're Skechers, you know they're going to be comfortable with Skechers' exclusive air-cooled memory foam. Find your new pair of Skechers safety toe and slip-resistant work shoes at a Skechers store, at Skechers.com, or wherever work shoes are sold.
Are you wet shaving? You'll get razor bumps.
Nah, Pops, I'm good with Gillette Skin Guard. How long you been growing that beard mama hates anyway?
Since 77. I shaved and got ingrown so bad.
That's why I use the Gillette Skin Guard razor, face scrub, shave gel, and moisturizer. So I don't have to worry about new razor bumps or shaving irritation.
Gillette Skin Guard, huh? Your mama's gonna love this one.
The best a man can get keeps getting better with Gillette Skin Guard. Buy now at a retailer near you.
Can't believe tax season is here already. Look at all this info I have to enter.
Phil's small accounting firm is growing in numbers.
Why didn't I take that typing class in high school?
A data entry specialist could really help him in a crunch.
I got blisters on my fingers.
Indeed can help him hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. You can schedule and conduct virtual interviews all from your employer dashboard. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
We knew you'd stick around. This is LA's home for Progressive Talk Radio. Welcome back to KBLA Talk 1580.
You're listening to a More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580. It's time for the quiet part out loud, and here to help us tell it is Judge Al Reynolds. Al, I'm sure you heard of the story of a former slave who taught Jack Daniels to make whiskey, but now the company is retreating from diversity, equity, and inclusion. Fawn Weaver, who is the founder of the Black-owned spirit brand, one of my favorites, Uncle Nearest, has a message for Jack Daniels' parent company, Brown-Forman, which announced last week that it's reversing course on its commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Taking a page from the liquor baron who died in 1911. In the 1800s, a young Daniel was introduced to a formerly enslaved man named Nathan Nearest Green, who had perfected the art of filtering whiskey through charcoal. Green taught Daniel how to distill whiskey, and together they built one of the world's most iconic brands. So when Brown-Forman said it would end workforce and supplier diversity goals and stop linking executive compensation to progress on diversity, equity, and inclusion, the interview request poured in. And Fawn Weaver responded via op-ed on Thursday with Time Magazine, saying, quite frankly, that Jack Daniel didn't need mandates or quotas to treat people equitably. His workforce at the distillery was diverse long before it was required by law. Al Reynolds, what say you? What say you about this latest retreat in the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, especially at a time when you have, a Black woman, also of South Asian descent, preparing to make history, world history, right? I mean, it seems the timing of this backpedaling seems especially bad in light of recent events. But what say you?
Listen, it's bull crap. And too bad I can't say bullshit, but it's bull crap. Let me tell you. Listen, the reason why a lot of people have abandoned DEI is basically because of consumer backlash and boycotts, right? And that was doing this, what I call Trumponomics. That was also doing this renegade politics. It was also a political climate that would support that type of behavior because people could hide behind saying that the consumers don't really believe that DEI is necessary. And the political climate is showing us X, Y, and Z. But what you pointed out here perfectly is that this is not the time, Jack Daniels. Now, Jack Daniels is interesting. Now, we got to break this down really quickly. They are a very, very smart consumer. They are some of the smartest consumers of liquor brands across the board. They're between 21 and 44. They've gone to high school and college, whether you believe it or not. They are considered middle to upper middle class consumers as far as consuming Jack Daniels. So Jack Daniels is not that salt of the earth consumer. Jack Daniels is more of that conservative consumer. But what happened is this story has gotten out, doctor, and the story about a founder. The reason why the liquor exists is because of slaves, and for you to turn your back on the very existence of your product is now causing pause for those who are learning the truth. And from learning the truth, I think we're going to see a little bit more backpedaling from Jack Daniels because their consumers read. And when they start reading these op-eds, when they start reading the truth behind the brand and how the brand came to existence and why it is such the brand that it is over all these years, people are going to ask for a second look. And I think that's necessary. Now, they have always applauded their diversity as far as being diverse in the manufacturing of it, but not in the management of it. And that's where the rub comes. You can't be a CEO and make the type of money that this CEO at Jack Daniels does and not have people of color in leadership. So for me, I'm excited to see them be exposed. I'm excited to see that their base, their consumer and their demographic is saying, hold up, we didn't know this. And now that we know this, we probably need to reevaluate why they're taking such an aggressive stance against it. So I think we're going to see a shift in not only because of the consumer backlash in the not needing it, more to a shift in the consumer of this brand saying, hey, you can't abandon the origin.
Well, look, we're gonna stay on the case as we should. Before we go, look, you and I would not be able to do the work that we do if there weren't so many trailblazers whose shoulders we sit upon. That includes Phil Donahue, an unsung LGBTQ ally who talked about being gay. He talked about AIDS when no one else would. Donahue cut to the chase. And if someone said something stupid, well, he wasn't afraid to let them have it. And For those who don't know about the extraordinary groundbreaker, Donahue was a pioneer talk show host who forever changed the landscape of daytime television with the Phil Donahue Show, also known as Donahue, a program that ran from 1967 to 1995. His approach was unique for its time, often inviting audience participation and focusing on controversial or taboo subjects. He did it with integrity, and we could certainly use a lot more of that in this industry, a lot more of that in the public square. In our remaining minute, Judge Al, how are you reflecting on the life and legacy of Phil Donahue?
Gosh, Donahue has opened so many doors for so many people. It's so interesting that you talked about his stance with HIV. Donahue actually had Mother Claire McBride hail back when she was taking in AIDS babies. I don't know. I was on the board of directors for the Hale House in New York City for over 10 years in the 90s, the late 90s and early 2000s. And in the 80s, Mother Hale was recognized by the president at that time for taking in AIDS babies and creating a safe haven for parents who could not felt like that they could take care of an AIDS baby because they thought it was a death sentence at that time.
Mhm.
And for him to have Mother Hale, who was a Black female who had a brownstone in Harlem, who was doing this all on her own on his show, helped raise over $30 million in the 80s for her foundation to keep that brownstone open.
Yeah.
No other talk show host was doing that at that time because the majority of the AIDS babies that we knew about were of color and nobody wanted anything to do with them. The hospitals would even let them die instead of providing medical facility and help. So he was that type of guy. He did it when it came to LGBTQ rights. And I promise you, if he was alive today, he would still be a strong voice as we talk about this transgender narrative that's going around. He was not afraid. He was a trailblazer, and I would love to see someone step back in that space and be that type of talk show host here in the 22nd century.
Absolutely. We are thinking about the life and legacy of Phil Donahue, Presidential Medal of Freedom winner. I had a chance to witness him accept that award. I'll have to leave it there. My thanks to Judge Al Reynolds for joining us. Please come back again soon.
Only if you have me.
Of course. And have a good weekend. Maybe I'll see you here in DC. Also, thanks to the Village that helps us produce a more perfect union each and every day. Our executive producer, Tavis Smiley, our sound engineer, Miles Lowe, our show producer, Robert Battles, and our podcast publishing guru, Odell Bodie. Remember, don't panic, organize. Do what you can from where you are with what you have. I'm Dr. Nii-Quartelai. You've been listening to, watching a more perfect union.